Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. This time we will be looking at a game that I played in a Simul. So this was on Friday. I was playing MLG chess. I think we've all seen him in one of our previous videos. So I played another game against him. It was very great, and of course I'd like to share it with you. So without further ado, let's go on. I'm black, so d4, d5. This is called the queen's pawn opening, right? Bishop at 4, bishop at 5. So far, I am copying my opponent. Nothing wrong with that. Knight f3, e6, knight bd2. So white is sort of setting up for this, bring the bishop out, castle, this sort of thing, right? And notice how I'm sort of setting up for somewhat the same thing. But here I play bishop d6 first. And now some people might think, okay, why not just take, and keep these double pawns, right? Some people will wonder, how is this good for black? And the answer is that with this kind of structure, black can later push e5, as I demonstrate in this game. So, our opponent MLG played bishop g3. I played knight f6 because I don't want to take there. And now you might think, okay, if I double, right? If I doubles pawns, then won't it be good? Okay, here's the thing. If white takes this way, then it's good for me because I play here, here, here. But if white takes with this pawn, then it's good for him because he has this sort of half-open file that makes his rook active. And so we'll see that by giving him an active rook, it won't be good for us. So that's why, of course, I played knight f6, e3, h6. So what I plan to do with h6 is give my bishop some room, right? If I play something like castles, something like knight h4 might come. But in this case, I have bishop g4. But in some scenarios, knight h4, bishop g6, takes, right? You notice that the knight got the bishop really easily. And you also want to note that this bishop is important, right? It controls this square and it prevents from the bishop from coming out here. So this bishop is very important. So that's why I give a sort of breathing room square. So takes, bishop b5, completely fine. I castle. Now I play a6. And what I do with a6 is I give my opponent a sort of decision. Does he want to go this way and this way, or does he want to keep himself on this diagonal? And so MLG decides to play bishop a4 and maybe get himself on this diagonal. I decide to strike right away with e5. I feel like it's time for me to push. I have enough forces guarding it, so I'm ready. And now c4 comes. So instead of c4, really, I would suggest trading. That's the simple way to put it, because this bishop is very strong. It can sort of like go in between the squares, but once you trade down these guys, right, it's going to look a lot better for both sides. However, if we look at this, e4, knight e1, let's say b5, right, then maybe you could look towards something like f3, or maybe you could look towards something like a4. But I feel like this would be a little bit better than what happened in the game. So after c4, I know in the game I talked to my opponent and he did miss this move, but played bishop d3, hitting the rook and threatening to take the pawn, with the bishop protecting it. So rook e1 happened, and here I thought about, two moves. Either we take or we play e4, right? The thing with e4, I looked at it, I was like e4, knight h4, and then dc4. And then I thought knight f5, queen, I don't know. Yeah, maybe this looks good for me now. I think, yeah, definitely I should have played e4 first. So this is one of those moments where even I can learn, right? I felt like by doing this, I had the flexibility of going e4 later. But I think e4 before, like as I mentioned in the previous variation, well, not this variation, but in this variation, is really strong. But okay, the game goes on, right? So d takes c4, bishop c2, and here I play e4. And e4 threatens the knight, makes it go to the side of the board. I was probably thinking something like queen a5, maybe d5, maybe b5, one of the, I think I would play b5, but I'm not sure. My opponent played b3. I told him that the knight was hanging, and I just said, you know what, I'll give you a chance. So I played b5, the knight moved, and here played c3. And here, as I said, I was thinking about other alternatives. What about knight d5, you might ask? Right? Threatening, threatening. Knight f5, threatening the pawn. And if I play here, something like queen, I don't know. I looked at this, and then I saw this. And I was like, ooh, I'm not sure if I want to face that much play. So what I did is I thought, okay, what about queen f6, right? But then I looked at knight g3 and was kind of scared with all that was coming. So I thought, you know what, let's put that down. I also thought about d5, just simply reinforcing. I also thought that was okay, right? But I wanted to just go for it. And here, of course, knight f1 is the better move. Going maybe knight g3, right? So, I don't know. But I would have played knight d5 here as well. Threaten this. So let's say after bishop takes, e takes, because after queen takes, right? Queen takes knight, so the knight has to go back, and we play d2. And this would be the sort of game that arises. So it's kind of, it's double-edged, but this knight to b1, it helped me a lot, and here's the reason. Bishop takes, queen takes, b4. Now the knight is shut off. So a3, a5, just continue creating the barrier. Knight f5, queen b6. So what I'm going to plan to do, play d5, shift it over, and then start a kingside attack. Because I know this side is virtually dead. So what I do is when pieces on one side are paralyzed, you go hard on the other side. It's sort of like attacking a flank, right? Sort of like a war, but on the board. So, just letting you know. Rook a2, d5, h3, just executing my plan here. And now knight h7. Going for g5, f5, knight f6, something like that. Queen e2, just go for it, because this is going to stay. Knight h5, g5, and now g3. Now this is one of those moves I would not really suggest someone to do, because although it seems like you're preventing this, you're weakening this guy. And if black can find out how to get to this guy, then the attack goes quicker. And so here I played knight f6, shutting down the position and shutting down the knight sort of is like a concession. It's like, I'm done, I concede. So I played f4. And what f4 does is bring a discovery here. So then g takes, queen takes h3, knight takes, f takes, and knight g4. With the threat of queen h2, with the threat of maybe rook takes f2, the knight paralyzed, and that was good game. So what really did white do wrong here? So of course this opening was played completely fine. I don't know. I would say c4 had to be the first tick where white went wrong. This is definitely a hard move to spot, right? It's not easy to say, okay, I can see this, threaten both, and just like laser eye it, right? I know that it's definitely not an easy thing to see, right? So I sort of hesitated looking at this, right? The first things black looks at in this position are take, and what about even this? But I saw this, threatening the bishop. So of course I rejected taking. Take does nothing for me, right? So when I say, when you want to trade a piece, you want to ensure that it's like beneficial for you, right? So in this case, this trade is going to make my structure worse. So that's why I didn't trade. So then I looked to other moves, and this popped out right away. So really this sort of thought process, this sort of like, you go from one stage, you go from considering one move to saying, nope, I can't do it. So it's got to be another move. So, of course, bishop d3, and then slowly by creating this barrier, I have to say the game deciding move was really knight b1. Because after this, it was sort of like, I pretty much dominated the right side because of this knight. The knight sort of like, it paused all the coordination. And then after all of this coming in, I won the game. So it was not easy because I made mistakes as well. And I'm just here to say, just as long as you have fun with the game, that's what matters. And hopefully you did enjoy that analysis.